They said she'd never make it. The family failure just became a millionaire, and you won't believe what she did when they finally came KNOC. King. Here's what happened next. They never had to say it outright, I was the family joke, dressed in human skin. Every holiday, without fail, the script repeated itself like a cruel tradition no one acknowledged. A chorus of clinking glasses, feigned laughter, and barbed jokes disguised as affection. My father, fork halfway to his mouth, would jab an elbow into Matthew's ribs and chuckle, wonder what Jessica's gonna say this year. Let's all prepare ourselves. My mother, her voice silken in exhaustion, never lifted her gaze. Just, try not to make it awkward this time, please. And I, like some ghost half welcome in my own life, would offer a brittle smile, nod as if in agreement with my own absurdity, and disappear into the garage to fetch folding chairs or start laying out cutlery like it were a calling. I'm Jessica. 32. For as long as I can remember, I played the part they wrote for me, the quiet misfit, the family's background noise. Matthew, the golden boy with an MBA and a condo downtown, Ashley, the maternal goddess with 3 photogenic children and a Pinterest board for every holiday. And me? The one who never quite arrived. I didn't climb ladders, I built bridges they couldn't see. They called it drifting. I called it building. Startups, freelance gigs, product launches, none of it impressed them. When I helped small businesses get their feet under them with custom apps, they called it a hobby. When I transitioned into consulting, they smirked, asked if I was still job hunting. Even after the SaaS product I launched exploded during the pandemic, when I mentioned hiring someone, Matthew scoffed between mouthfuls of turkey. Hire? You mean like, a buddy to fix your blog? He snorted. My father, sleeves rolled, carved the bird like a man auditioning for a show no one watched anymore. That Thanksgiving, I stopped explaining. Not because I was ashamed, but because they weren't listening. I'd become their favorite punchline, the one who never grew up, the one who didn't quite fit, the one who somehow embarrassed them by simply existing. But it was Ashley's birthday that marked the quiet breaking point. She turned 35. Mom, in full matriarch mode, rented out a vineyard for the occasion. There were violin covers of pop songs, gourmet appetizers passed on silver trays, and a slideshow that could have doubled as a political campaign. Ashley smiling with her firstborn, Ashley in a cap and gown, Ashley at a desk holding up her first tax return. During the toasts, Matthew raised his glass. Here's to Ashley, proof that being responsible actually pays off. Laughter. Real, indulgent, wine-warmed laughter. Aunt Kimberly even clapped like she'd witnessed something noble. Then Mom added her signature flourish, smiling in that brittle way she did when she thought she was being clever. And Jessica, well, he always keeps things interesting. My wine glass trembled slightly in my fingers. No one noticed. They were too busy basking in their own cleverness. That night, I didn't storm out. I stayed. Helped clean up. Not for them, for the catering staff, who looked like they hadn't sat down in hours. I folded chairs, packed leftover cake, and loaded boxes into the van. Matthew passed me in the dark, lips curled in that smug half-smile he'd perfected since puberty. Still doing the heavy lifting, huh, he muttered, just loud enough to hurt, just quiet enough to deny. I said nothing. But silence is never empty. Sometimes, it's the sharp edge of something about to begin. The truth? I'd been planning this for years. Quietly, carefully. I'd learned how to ride the unstable currents of freelance income, how to invest wisely, how to automate what others wasted time managing manually. Spring that year, I closed on something none of them could have imagined, a 3-bedroom architectural dream, perched above a city that never looked better than it did through floor-to-ceiling windows. Smart locks, climate controlled by whisper, a backyard that silenced even the noisiest mind. I unpacked in peace. No congratulations, no questions. Because no one had asked what I was building. So I celebrated myself. For the first time, I threw a party not to impress or to please, but to honor the years I spent growing in the dark. I curated every detail like a director preparing a premiere. A guest list of people who'd seen the struggle, the late nights, the quiet victories. Clients turned friends, colleagues who stood by me when I doubted myself, allies who didn't need explanations. Not a single family member received an invitation. When Ashley texted about brunch that weekend, I simply replied, "Can't, already booked." I made the event private on Facebook. Not invisible. That was just a cabaret. Let them wonder. Let them guess. Let them feel, for once, what it's like to stand on the outside, watching someone they thought they'd buried quietly rise without a sound. The night unfolded like a dream I hadn't dared to let myself imagine. The kind of evening where everything sparkled just a little, lights strung like constellations across the patio, music floating like memory, voices lifted in genuine laughter that didn't feel barbed or borrowed. For once, I wasn't surviving a room. I was owning it. People circled the fire pit, passed glasses, shared old stories that didn't involve me being the footnote. A jazz trio played under the pergola. Someone belted a Whitney Houston hook-off key, and everyone cheered. Cameras flashed, and I didn't flinch. Emily, ever dramatic and always honest, caught a photo of me on the balcony, arms wide, grinning like someone who had finally come home to himself. She posted it with a caption that read, "From family outcast to empire builder. Jessica, you did the damn thing." That single sentence cracked the whole thing open. By sunrise, the fallout had begun. Missed calls littered my screen like broken glass. Mom. Matthew. Ashley. A number I didn't recognize, Aunt Margaret, of course. My phone was blinking with notifications I hadn't asked for. I hadn't posted anything. But I hadn't hidden it either. There I was, tagged and visible, cutting the ribbon across my new front door with absurdly large scissors. Laughing. Toasting. Holding space like I'd earned it. Because I had. And the comments rolled in. "Jessica, this is gorgeous. So proud of you. Wait, when did you buy a house? This is what we call thriving. Bravo." Then, like rot under fresh paint. "Why weren't we invited? Amanda. This hurts. Family should have been there. Ashley. Some people forget where they came from. Mom. Guess that fake job had real money after all. Matthew. No one asked how I did it. No one asked if I was happy. They only asked why they weren't center stage." I didn't reply. Not to the guilt-riddled paragraphs. Not to the thinly veiled resentment. Not even to the word my mother chose so carefully in her long, scolding message. Embarrassed. As if my success was something obscene. As if I'd shamed them by succeeding without their applause. I stared at the word for a long time. Then deleted the message. I felt nothing but clarity. And then, because he always had to be first through the door, Matthew came knocking. Literally. 2 mornings later, my gate buzzer lit up. There he was, on screen, shifting his weight like the driveway owed him something. His blazer was still creased from the office, watch flashing his priorities like a signal flare. He pressed the buzzer again. I let him sit with it. His voice came through the speaker, flat with forced patience. "Jessica, it's me. I'm not here to argue. Just open the gate." I sipped my coffee and watched him from behind the kitchen island. He looked like someone trying to process a bad magic trick. The buzzer went again. Then the phone buzzed. "Matthew, I'm not leaving until we talk." A minute passed. I let it. Then I exhaled and hit the release. His car moved up the drive slowly, like the house might disappear if he blinked too fast. When he got out, he didn't speak. Just stared at the place like it had betrayed him. I opened the front door before he could knock. He studied me. No hello. No congratulations. Just the question. "This is real?" I didn't move. "Yeah." "Why the secrecy?" I smiled, slow and cold. "Why the sudden interest?" He crossed his arms. "You couldn't have mentioned it? A house? A party? You think we didn't deserve to know?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. You've spent years treating me like a charity case. Or worse, like a punchline. You called my work a hobby. You made digs at every dinner. And now you're upset I didn't invite you to the reveal? He scoffed. It wasn't like that. No, Matthew. It was exactly like that. I was the family clown you could feel superior to. I stopped sharing because you never cared. You didn't see me. His gaze darted past me, scanning the open floor plan like it might offer a loophole. This place is insane, he muttered. Must have cost a fortune. And there it was. The thing he really came for, measurement. Not apology. Not reflection. Just trying to figure out how I pulled it off without him. He tried again, softer this time. Mom's upset. So is Ashley. You blindsided them. You hurt them. I tilted my head. Because I stopped begging for space at the table? They're your family. No. They're people I share blood with. Family doesn't mock your ambition or Jessica your work until you disappear. They did that. You did that. His face hardened, but something behind his eyes flickered, doubt or guilt or maybe just discomfort at being seen too clearly. He reached for the easy out, the word they always used when control slipped. You embarrassed them. This time, I didn't flinch. I stepped forward, met his gaze with steady calm. No, Matthew. I exposed them. I should have laughed, maybe. But there was no humor left in it. Embarrassed? I repeated, not bothering to hide the edge in my voice. That's rich. For years I was the family disappointment. The weirdo. The mistake. But now that I've done something worth celebrating, and didn't drag them into it, suddenly they're the victims? Matthew said nothing. Just stood there like a man caught between two scripts, neither one giving him the lines he wanted. He shifted his weight. She cried, you know. Mom. When she saw the photos. She cried when I dropped out of grad school too, I said. She said I'd thrown my future in the trash. Maybe she just cries when she loses control. Matthew looked down at his shoes. Italian leather, probably. Still trying to figure out which role to play, concerned sibling or wounded patriarch. I'm not saying we were perfect, he said finally. I stepped forward, the words coming low and quiet. You weren't flawed, Dan. You were cruel. All of you. Death by 1,000 smiles. You made jokes that weren't jokes, gave advice I never asked for, handed out pity like favors. You didn't raise me, you buried me. He swallowed. So what now? You cut everyone off? Rewrite history so we're just strangers? I looked at him. Not just at the surface, but through him. At the boy who shoved me out of family photos. The teenager who rolled his eyes every time I spoke. The adult who made my silence a punchline. No, I said. I'm just finally writing my own story. And I get to choose the cast. His jaw clenched. So this is punishment. I smiled faintly. No. This is freedom. That silenced him. He turned without a word and walked down the path toward his car. But just before he reached it, he pivoted back. You're still bitter, he said, the words clipped and cold. I met his gaze. And you're still exactly who I thought you were. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say more, but stopped. Maybe for once, he realized there was nothing left to win. Then came the tail lights, the engine hum, and he was gone. I went back inside. The house was quiet, soft with afternoon light. I could still hear his voice echoing faintly, you cut us out. But the truth was simpler. I had stopped offering a seat to people who never asked how I was doing, only why I wasn't more like them. Later that evening, a ping lit up my phone. A message from Amanda. Screenshot attached. It was a family group chat. One I was never invited to. Mom. I don't know why he's doing this. After everything we gave him. Maybe he just enjoys making us look bad. Ashley. He's always been off. None of this surprises me, honestly. Matthew. Let him have his little victory lap. It's temporary. That line. Temporary. I stared at it for a long time. They didn't be Jessica it. Any of it. The house. The business. The life I had built with my own hands while they watched from the Sid Jessicanes, convinced I was stumbling through chaos. They thought this was a phase. A fluke. Because to admit it was real would mean admitting they were wrong. About me. 4 years. And they weren't built to say those words. So I didn't get angry. I didn't scream. I didn't reply. I got to work. The next morning, I confirmed a slot on a major tech podcast, one I'd been quietly invited to months earlier but hadn't accepted. Until now. That same week, I signed with an agency to scale the consultancy. I updated my website. My socials. I posted a photo or two from the party, not flashy, just intentional. Just visible enough. I wasn't seeking attention. I was building context. Letting the narrative evolve, one truth at a time. And more importantly, letting them watch it happen. Because the most powerful thing I could do wasn't to block them, it was to leave the door open just wide enough for them to witness what they missed. And then came the envelope. Thick. Cream-colored. Hand dejessicated. The kind of stationery you use for weddings or last wills. My name written carefully on the front, in my mother's handwriting. I turned it over in my hands. For a moment, I considered tossing it into a drawer, next to the postcards never sent, the letters I wrote to no one in particular. But something stopped me. Inside were 5 handwritten pages. Lined notebook paper. Familiar. Domestic. Her handwriting hadn't changed since childhood, rounded, careful, almost too neat. Every word underlined like it needed to prove something. The first page began without preamble. I don't even know where to begin. I leaned back, the letter trembling slightly in my hand. She went on to describe her confusion, her pain, her disjessiquif. She said seeing strangers online congratulating me felt like erasure. Like the world was cheering on a version of me she didn't recognize. She didn't say sorry. Not once. Not for the years of silence. Not for the snide remarks. Not for the laughter at my expense. Only that she felt replaced. Invisible. Like she'd lost something that was never hers to keep. And for the first time in my life, I understood something clearly. She wasn't grieving the distance. She was grieving the loss of control. By the time I hit the second page, the letter stopped pretending to be about me. You've always been a bit theatrical, Jessica. Even as a kid. Remember when you'd shut yourself in your room for hours just because someone joked about your clothes? You took everything so seriously. We were just teasing. That's what families do, we keep each other grounded. Grounded. That word stuck like a bone in my throat. What she meant was, we clipped your wings before they grew. This wasn't remorse. It was repackaging. A polished rewrite of every cutting remark, every holiday insult dressed up as humor. Not an apology, a gentle erasure. It was a mother making her own cruelty sound like discipline, like tradition. Every paragraph hummed the same poisoned melody, this pain is your fault, for not laughing along. Page 3? A deflection field. Matthew didn't mean it when he told me I'd never amount to anything. Ashley admired my independence, even when she mocked it in front of her friends. Dad was simply, from another generation, the kind of man who couldn't help but look down on anything he didn't understand. She underlined it, old-fashioned. Old-fashioned, like furniture. Like bigotry wrapped in nostalgia. They weren't monsters. Just misunderstood. That was the pitch. And then came the ask. Why don't we start fresh? Host something, make it a family celebration. Everyone's willing to let go of the past, if you are. Translation, swallow it. Smile. Let us rewrite the ending. But the truth stepped out in the next paragraph, dressed up like a compliment. Amanda mentioned your company's doing well. That's incredible. Maybe you could help us understand some things, financial stuff. You've always been good with money, and we've been struggling. You could guide us. And there it was. The real engine behind the envelope. I was never supposed to win. But now that I had, they wanted to retrofit their pride into profit. I didn't finish the letter. I didn't need to. I already knew how it would end. We love you. We miss you. We're proud of you, now that you're useful. I walked to the window. Outside, the lanterns from my housewarming party still hung in gentle loops. The laughter from that night had dried up, but the sense of it lingered, like something carved into the wood. Not tolerated. Not teased. Celebrated. This wasn't about mending. It wasn't about love. It was about control. They weren't coming to heal. They were coming to claim a piece of me now that it came with a spotlight. I went back, picked up the final page. Forced myself to read it. We'd love to come visit. Maybe bring wine, take a few photos, just to show how proud we are. It would mean a lot to your father. Not, asterisk, it would mean something to you. Not, we want to understand you now. Just, let us back in the frame. Let us perform Pride long enough for a picture. My jaw tightened. I could feel the heat rise, not rage, but the sharp sting of clarity. They weren't proud. They were threatened. Because for the first time, they couldn't shrink me back into the version that made them feel bigger. That night, I lit a fire in the pit out back. I poured a drink. Watched the letter dissolve into ash. No drama. No ceremony. Just silence and smoke. The next day, Ashley posted a picture, wine glasses, candles, the family gathered like nothing had happened. The caption read, "Some people forget where they came from. We don't. Real love always stays close." The comments were a choir of passive aggression. Margaret, family is everything. Matthew, no room for egos here, just roots. Mom, grateful for the ones who never drift too far. Then one comment slipped through the cracks. Didn't Jessica throw a party last week? Strange, I don't see any of you in those photos. Gone within minutes. They were rebuilding the myth. Pretending the exile was mine. Pretending they weren't watching me in silence, wondering how they'd lost the one they thought would always need them. I didn't comment. Didn't reply. Didn't blink. But behind the scenes? I started preparing for something they wouldn't be able to delete. A month ago, a local magazine had reached out, wanted to feature me. Up-and-coming founder. Innovative small business consultant. The guy who built something from nothing. At the time, I declined. Too exposed, I thought. Too loud. But now? Now I opened my calendar. Found their email. Hit reply. Happy to talk. Let me know when you'd like to schedule the interview. The interview wasn't a declaration. It was a release. I didn't dress for the camera. I didn't perform gratitude or craft redemption arcs. I spoke plainly, the way people do when they've stopped asking for permission to exist. I told the story as it was, the years of trying to stitch together a future from freelance scraps, building something real while everyone looked away. The exhaustion. The missed calls. The slow, unseen momentum. I didn't name names. I didn't need to. The people who doubted me would recognize themselves in the spaces I left blank. The article published under a bold, unapologetic headline. From failure to founder, how one underdog quietly built a 7-figure tech company. The photo? Me standing on the balcony of my home, shoulder square, city lights behind me. Not smiling. Not defiant. Just still. The caption read, "Jessica, 32, says he never fit in, and finally stopped trying." I shared it once, on LinkedIn. No caption. No hashtags. And then I closed the app. The response came faster than I expected. Clients resurfaced. Recruiters extended offers. Former classmates sent long overdue congratulations. Even a professor from college commented, "Always knew you were building something big, even if you didn't shout about it." But the message that hit hardest came 3 days later. A text. From my father. Saw the article. Nice place. Would have been good if you mentioned us. Let me know when we can visit. It read like a memo. Cold. Impersonal. No proud of you. Just a gentle jab dressed as invitation. I didn't reply. The next day, my mother called. 3 times. No voicemail, no text. Just the insistence of presence. Then Ashley messaged. Can we talk? Just us? I paused before answering. Then I typed. Fine. 1 hour. No drama. We met at a cafe on the edge of our old neighborhood. She was already seated when I arrived, dressed in beige, as if neutrality could be worn like armor. Her fingers curled around her coffee cup like it might break loose. Hey, she said, eyes tired. I Saturday hey. We didn't speak for a while. The hum of the espresso machine filled the space between us. Finally, she broke the silence. We were wrong, she said. I'm not going to dance around it. We didn't be Jessica you. We laughed. We excluded you. We thought we knew who you were. I nodded. Let her sit in it. But Jessica, the way you handled everything, the party, the article, it felt like you were rewriting history. Like we never existed. I looked at her evenly. That's not rewriting. That's correcting. She swallowed, hard. I think, she said slowly, we didn't know how to understand someone who didn't follow the rules. You didn't build the life we expected. And when it worked anyway, it made us feel small. There it was. Honesty. Uneasy, unpolished. But, she added, you've iced us out. We're your family, and we look like strangers now. I didn't flinch. Because that's what you became. Gradually. Quietly. And I accepted it for a long time because I didn't think I deserved more. But now? I'm not erasing anyone. I'm just choosing clarity over obligation. She was silent. Then, so is that it? You're done with us? I leaned forward slightly. I'm done with versions of you that require me to shrink. She blinked. So what does that mean? For us? It means if you want to be in my life, you don't get to narrate it. You don't get to soften the past or demand access. There's no more doorbell without a call. No more group jokes at my expense. No more disguised asks. She looked down, eyes glinting. That's fair, she said. Hard, but fair. We sat in silence again. She didn't ask to see the house. She didn't ask for money. She didn't ask for a second chance. She just said, can I try to do better? And I said, sure. But what I meant was, that's up to you. Not me. 2 weeks later, the performance resumed. A family dinner appeared on Instagram, long table, filtered lighting, smiles arranged just right. Caption. Some people forget where they came from. But love keeps us close. The comments were a script. Aunt Margaret, family is forever. Matthew, we don't need applause. Just truth. Mom, gratitude always wins. And one buried comment, quickly deleted. Didn't Jessica just have a party? Didn't see any of you there. I didn't respond. But I saved a screenshot. The next day, a voicemail from Matthew. Short. Bitter. Tightly wound. You think a few articles make you better than us? You're still that awkward kid who never belonged anywhere. Money doesn't change that. You just bought yourself a taller fence. He hung up. But I didn't feel anger. I felt confirmation. I hadn't built a fence. I'd built a perimeter. And I decided who crossed it now. Matthew had been wrong about almost everything. But not that. In some ways, I was still the same. Still drawn to the edges of rooms. Still more observer than participant. Still someone who'd rather listen than fill the silence just to avoid it. But I wasn't fragile anymore. I wasn't waiting to be seen. And I no longer mistook the absence of praise for the absence of worth. That weekend, I hosted a dinner. Nothing extravagant, just the right people, the right warmth. Friends who had stayed when things were uncertain. Mentors who'd be Jessica'd in the vision long before it looked like anything. And one surprising RSVP, Ashley. She arrived alone. No performance this time, just a bottle of wine and a careful, hopeful smile. I opened the door before she knocked. Inside, I gave her the tour. She moved slowly through each room, pausing, absorbing. Her eyes widened at the home office, the notes layered across the whiteboard, the framed articles, the clean order of the space. "You really did this," she said softly. "You really built something." This time, the smile came easily. "I did," I said. There was no need to say more. She could see it now. She was standing in the proof. Later, as we cleared plates, she lingered in the doorway like she was still trying to decide if she belonged in this version of my life. "You know," she said, "I think this is the first time I've ever seen you as the main character." I laughed gently. Not bitter. Not triumphant. Just clean. "That's because it's the first time I stopped waiting for a script someone else wrote." She nodded, eyes damp but steady. There was no plea, no apology. Just presence. And when she hugged me goodnight, it wasn't stiff or ceremonial. It was quiet and real, two adults acknowledging the long distance between them, and the bridge they might still build. When the door closed behind her, I didn't feel hollow. I felt weightless. That night, I checked my inbox. 3 new emails from my mother. 1 from my father. All unread. I wasn't angry. Just done with the version of me that needed their understanding. Then a different message caught my eye. A podcast invitation. A producer had listened to the magazine interview and wanted to feature me in a series called "The Power of Being Underestimated." I said yes. During the recording, I spoke like I'd lived the story twice, once in pain, once in clarity. I talked about building in silence, about learning to trust momentum when applause was absent. About what it feels like to grow in a room where everyone else is trying to shrink you down. And near the end, unplanned, but inevitable, I said, "The real power isn't proving people wrong. It's building a life so right that their opinions can't reach you. Not because you've erased them, but because you've simply outgrown their relevance." No names. No illusions. Just truth. But truth has a way of ringing loud, even when whispered. They heard it. I know they did. But for the first time, I didn't need to know what they thought. I didn't feel the tug to explain, to soften, to include them in something they had refused to be Jessica in until it was finished. For the first time, I wasn't a footnote in their version of the story. I wasn't the disappointment, the odd one, the cautionary tale. I wasn't their embarrassment. I was free.